Rising. Are you incredibly pale? Do you have a distinct and unnatural aversion to natural sunlight? Do you stay up all night plotting your ultimate revenge against the society that has cast you aside? Well, good news, you are not a NEET. You're a vampire. Welcome to V Rising. This video is brought to you in collaboration with Stunlock Studios and V Rising itself. I'm genuinely ecstatic to be able to talk about this game on their behalf because if you somehow can't already tell, this game is awesome. Check out the links in the description, and if I somehow haven't already convinced you to do so, don't worry, you've got an entire video to go through. I'll convince you. V Rising is probably the most recent game I've covered, releasing in 1.0 from early access just last month on Steam, and only having just launched on the PlayStation 5. Good news, PlayStation players, you finally have a game to play, and I was genuinely impressed by how much Kino was crammed into such a small package, and I've not even scratched the surface. 7 gigabytes is all you need. In other words, you can install and play V Rising roughly 43 times over before you can even think about installing Black Ops 6. In V Rising, you're a vampire. The character creation is deceptively simple. There is a lot of variety on display here. If you want to play as a vampire orc, like that one guy in Oblivion, you can play like a vampire orc. The random name generator is also a big help, pulling up such distinctive and authoritative titles such as Isaac, Marcel, Garraway, and Dave. Upon starting the game, the first thing you'll realize is just how gorgeous this game looks. This is the same across the PC release as well as the PS5. You're immediately immersed into this seductive gothic atmosphere as you stumble around your crypt, trying to regain your bearings, harassing the local undead neighbors who are, unfortunately for them, way deader than you and thus need to go, and slowly building up your strength as you venture off to the outside world, to reclaim what was once rightfully yours. So far, my experience with V Rising has been incredibly cozy. It's an even split between intense combat, exploration, resource gathering, and base building. All of these factors complementing each other and scaling very carefully alongside the next to deliver a very steady, very rewarding progression system. You hunt to gain materials and blood essence to sustain yourself and your lair, while exploring the land, gathering whatever resources you can find to take back home and polish yourself up some better gear for you to go back out into the world and hunt bigger, meaner prey. You can specialize quite freely in any of these playstyles, even more so if you have friends. Which I don't. If you want to play as an undead lumberjack, you can absolutely play as an undead lumberjack, demolishing local ruins and carving down the local forestry to take back with you and add to your home.
But Joshi,
you might ask,
why must a creature of the night belittle himself with menial labor only suited to peasants? Are you stupid or something?
To which I would reply, yeah, it's not that simple. You're a vampire. Therefore, you must fear the sunlight. The sunlight is one hell of a wrench in the works for your plans in V Rising. You can quite happily wander the Vardaran countryside, slaying poachers and feasting on the wildlife until everything essentially goes out the window as soon as the sun comes up. Like an Englishman in July, if you set foot into the sunlight even briefly, you will begin to sustain massive amounts of damage until your inevitable demise, until you find some shade to lurk in. But this is not always ideal, since shade underneath trees can be quite sparse, especially if you've been cutting down all the trees in the area. So, what's the alternative? Go home, reorganize your inventory, and vibe to how well orchestrated and brooding this game's atmosphere is. Jokes aside, this essentially makes base building, essential. You need shelter from the sun if you're to survive. And if you're like me and carelessly alt-tab alone out in the wild while taking a toilet break, you're going to find yourself a tarantula's very nutritious meal. Which brings me to the base building. Yes, base building, a vampire's forte. Base building in V Rising is a very curious thing indeed, especially considering the transition from PC to console. Given the elaborate and rather expansive control scheme, you would have thought it would have been very difficult to translate the control schemes between the two. Well, think think no more. It's actually very intuitive with the PlayStation 5 controller. Between clearing out the local forestry, laying the foundations for your lair, and erecting walls and the various appliances within to aid you in your conquests, the sky is essentially the limit for what's available for you to construct in V Rising. You'll be spending quite a lot of time in your lair, especially when the sun comes out, and admittedly, in the beginning, when all you have available to you are a few planks of wood and a few stones to really pull it all together, your castle will look more like a crack den in the middle of the woods. Don't worry, you should see what is available to you as you progress through the game. You go from a shack in the woods to Buckingham Palace, and navigating the menu, laying floors and building walls and everything you need to aid in your quest is really very simple. Everything is very clearly laid out for you, and very easy to navigate once you familiarize yourself with the game. Stunlock has clearly spent a lot of time perfecting the experience for PlayStation 5 players, and it shows, not just in base building, but in combat as well. The twin-stick mode of control really allowing for perfectly fluid and utterly seamless combat. Thumbs up from me, this is the good stuff. Speaking of combat, well, you know what they say, you are what you eat.
I'm a dog. I'm biting the fart bubbles into back.
And V Rising takes this phrase quite literally, since depending on what you feed on and the potency of its blood, you will take on various characteristics from your victim after you are done feeding that have a wide variety of stat boosts for you to take advantage of. Between wolves and bandits, there are plenty of varieties in your meals, and again, this is only scratching the surface. You're also encouraged to hunt carriers of V blood, who are essentially bosses far stronger than any other creatures roaming the land, hosting a specific form of blood known as V-Blood, which allow you to harness new technologies and abuse new forms of magic. And believe me, there's a lot to choose from. Between the melee and ranged weapons themselves, combined with mixing and matching the magic systems, you're gonna find yourself with a lot of different playstyles at your disposal. Perfect if you're mixing them with friends. In short, V Rising is a far deeper experience than it appears at first glance. Its simplicity goes hand in hand with the natural progression of each mechanics, steadily guiding you into the true depth of the experience. What I've played so far has only left me wanting more, and really, I've only just begun. The influences from its early access development cycle and Stunlock's keen interactions with the community are plain for all to see, and have all served to give us the game that we have today. And what do we have today? A varied, fun, challenging, and perversely inviting experience. Highly polished, carefully crafted, with machine precision. So, if you like this game, go and get it right this instant. Use the link in the description, available on Steam, and newly released on the PlayStation 5. If you really like this game, grab the premium editions, The Legacy of Castlevania. Yes, that Castlevania. Trip yourself and your castle out like it's no one's business. God damn, this is gorgeous. Thank you all so much for watching. Special shout out to the very generous Patreon donors keeping me company down in my Patreon. You are all despicably wonderful. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you like this content, and be sure to check out my weekend live streams at 7 PM British time on Saturdays and Sundays. Who knows, you might catch me playing V Rising. After all, I ain't done with this game yet. Take care everyone, and see you all next time.